Over the next several videos, we are going to examine the weapons and armor used during the Middle Ages. But first we are going to examine armor and specifically the helmet. There were literally dozens and dozens of different types of helmets. I am looking at my notebook right now, and on this page alone I have 14 different types. But in this video we are going to examine the 5 major types of helmets. Now, one of the most common types of helmets in Europe and in the Middle East during the Middle Ages was the Spangenhelm. Now, if you take a look at this, you will notice that this looks very similar to helmets worn in ancient times. And that's because the Persians and Romans had similar designs, this sort of conical design. Now, as I said, the Spangenhelm was the helmet of choice in the early Middle Ages. The actual name Spangenhelm is German in origin. Spangen refers to these metal strips, which you can see right here. These metal strips formed the supporting structure of the helmet. The strips were typically constructed of steel or bronze. You can see the rivets on the metal strips as well, so this was a very solid piece of equipment. Some Spangenhelms also included cheek flaps, which gave an added layer of protection. One big advantage of the Spangenhelm was that it was easy to produce. Its main drawback was that it only gave partial head protection, as the face was left relatively unprotected. It was eventually replaced by newer helms, which we will talk about in the next slide. Around the time of the Normans, we start to see an add-on to the original Spangenhelm. And one of the main helmets used from the time of the Norman conquest was the Norman casque. This helmet has also been referred to as the nasal helmet. And the reason for this, as you can see, is this extension or casque protecting the nose. The helmet basically had the same design as the Spangenhelm in that the helmet is conical. But again, the main difference is the added level of protection around the face. Now, this might not look like much, but it actually provided a great deal more protection to the face than the Spangenhelm did. And you had a much better chance of surviving a direct blow to the face than you did before. You can also see 4 pieces of metal plate that meet at the apex of the helmet. Similar to the Spangenhelm, this constituted the framework of the helmet. The Norman casque was the helmet of choice until the end of the 12th century. The next important change to medieval helmets occurred at the end of the 12th century, and that was the introduction of the Great Helm. This Great Helm evolved from the Norman casque. This is one of the most identifiable helmets from the Middle Ages. You will notice right away that the Great Helm provides almost full protection to the head, and they are quite identifiable by these eye slits. The Great Helm was used widely throughout the Crusades, so many of the drawings and paintings during that time period have the knights and professional warriors wearing great helms. The Great Helm came in 2 types. One type of helm was an entire piece, while other great helms came with a movable piece in the front. Also, some of the first great helms were flat-topped, while others evolved into a round top, as you can see in this diagram. Usually the helm was worn over a coif of chainmail. Also, some of the great helms had a cross decoration on the visor, as you can see in this diagram. Many kings and knights often wore great helms that were quite elaborate. Many decorated their helms with gold and precious stones. As we move deeper into the Middle Ages, helmets became more and more sophisticated. We see this in the development of the Bascinet. The most distinctive feature of the Bascinet was the pointy apex at the top of the helmet. The Bascinet came in 2 types. One type was open-faced, and the other type came with a face guard or visor. The open-faced Bascinet was often used by archers or ranged footmen, since they didn't have a need for the visor. You can see this open-faced Bascinet has a mail curtain attached to it. The other type of Bascinet contained a movable visor, which you can see right here. This particular helm is called the beaked Bascinet, because of the beaked-shaped visor. This pointy visor served a very useful purpose. It was very useful in deflecting arrows, and archers were becoming more of a problem for knights in the later Middle Ages. Later on, the visors were less pointy, as you can see in this painting. The less pointy visor is called the Great Bascinet, and that was the last major style of this genre. The Bascinet was used with both plate armor and chainmail, but primarily plate, as there was a gradual movement away from chainmail. Bascinets hit their high-water mark in the 14th century. The Bascinet was gradually replaced by the Armet in the 15th century. Helmets reached their apex with the development of the Armet. This, of course, went hand in hand with the use of full-body plate armor in the 15th and 16th centuries. This was necessary with the increasing reliance and power of ranged weapons. The Armet provided almost 100% protection to both the head and neck, and was almost always used with plate armor. The Armet contained several pieces, so this helmet could not have been a lot of fun to put on. Good thing the knight had squires to do all the dirty work. Now let's break down the main pieces of the armet. Here is the crown or cap. There were actually two parts to the visor, an upper visor and a lower visor. This part is called the bever. The bever was designed to protect areas around the neck and chin. The gorget provided protection to the neck and chest. The gorget came in two pieces, a front and a back piece. It also could come in the form of a single piece of plate armor. Okay, that's going to do it for this video. In the next video, we will continue on with armor.